So you want to learn how to play Football Manager? Here's how. No, Reese, that was the worst one. Don't use that one, please. Please don't use that one. Hey guys, welcome back for another edition of Football Manager for Beginners. You already knew that because you clicked on the video. Today, we are going to be taking the next step from actually setting up your game to looking at your team for the first time, what you're looking at, how to process it, and how to move forward from there. These Football Manager for Beginners will be coming out every other Wednesday until I feel that we have covered every basic aspect of the game. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's open the save. We're back at the helm of Dynamo Zagreb, and we are in Football Manager. We got a bunch of messages. This is the first thing you're going to see is your inbox and all of this crazy stuff and information that it's trying to tell you. All I'm going to need you to do is click to your squad. This is your team. This is how you're going to win or lose in Football Manager. There is a ton of information you can get from this screen. Now, I'm guessing it's going to start at something like general info. For me, it started on contract, so maybe for you, it'll start on contract. But there's a bunch of different filters you can use to look at the players in your squad. Now, obviously, at a club like Dynamo Zagreb, there's going to be a reserve team, there's going to be a youth team as well, and there's likely going to be one for you. I will show you how to access that in a moment. But first, what is this telling us? So the players in your squad are going to have notifications next to your name. These are going to tell you everything from this player is wanted by different clubs to they are a foreign non-EU player, which will have to do with squad registration, which is in another video. And then there's going to be, they're homegrown. That means also for registration purposes, they are homegrown, they are hurt, and there's a bunch of other information that's going to come to you on the left. You obviously then have the position, the nationality, the height, weight, age, and value. I want you to look at the value. I want you to turn it into a ball and throw it away because you're never going to use it again. And next, we're going to go down to the contract. Now, this is where you're going to be introduced for the first time to something that is fairly unique to Football Manager, and that's this tiered system of agreed playing time that you're working with. So basically the first thing I do when I take over a new club is I come to here and we just sort by agreed playing time. Now we've got two players that are purple. You're going, what's purple? That means they're loaned out at the moment. We're going to be dealing with transfers, of course, in another video. But you see you have 4 important players. That means that whether these guys are the best players on your team or not, they're expecting to play the most. So you're able to click on them and to break them down. And it's probably about the time that you get to this screen and you click on the player and you see all of this information that you have absolutely no idea how to deal with, that you want to quit Football Manager for the first time because it looks incredibly overwhelming. But there is a guide here that is going to help you out a ton, and that guide has to do with a player's position and role. So this map over here is interactable. You can interact with it, and when clicking around this map you see a host of different roles that will pop up. Now some of them are a bit interpretive. You might not know what they mean, like a halfback, or maybe you don't know what an anchorman does. You certainly probably don't know what a segundo volante or a regista does, but you know what a ball-winning midfielder does. You click on ball-winning midfielder in the defensive midfield spot, and it highlights the attributes that are most important for those positions. Now, something to understand about Football Manager is that everything affects everything. That means that the attributes that aren't highlighted are still important and are affecting what they affect. But in terms of doing this job well, that's highlighted here, these are the attributes you should be looking at, and it really narrows down your focus. Before you try and take more meaning from that than what you see right here, that, well, these attributes are pretty high there, Bob. Yeah, they are. I want you to go through and just hover over each of the attributes, because some not make a lot of sense to you, and the others are going to, you think they make sense to you, but you're thinking of something else. So something like off the ball only affects their movement to receive a pass, or something like positioning is only in effect in defensive situations. That sort of thing is important. So we're going to make a detailed attributes video in the future. Like, this is a multiple month process of making Football Manager for beginners. But going through and hovering over all of these attributes is going to give you a basic understanding of what aspect of that player's ability they control. Feels like it would take a long time. Takes about 5 minutes. You go through, read all of it, and it provides that basic understanding for you. And again, I promise this game is awesome. It's worth it. Hang in there. There's a lot of other information here as well. Those conditions the player is under, they pop up here. You have your contract, your coach report. You have a personality, which you might not even notice right away, but the personality is very important when it comes to how to interact with the player and how well they develop. They have player traits. So this guy runs with the ball often, which, to be perfectly honest, considering his dribbling, pace, acceleration, and agility, is not a good player trait. He does not need to be running with the ball often. You have their morale, their overall fitness, their happiness with training. All of that information on each of the players is available immediately on their player screen. So now let's look, what year is it? 2020. Oh joy. Well, let's sort by expiring. So let's see whose contracts are expiring at the end of this season. So in a typical winter season, that would be 6/30/2021, would be expiring at the end of next season. So this doesn't mean you have to go out and try and negotiate new contracts with these players right away. It just means that you should be aware of the fact that these guys, if you end up liking them, are going to be leaving, and you want to try and get a contract negotiated by December. Because if you get within 6 months of the end of the season and somebody hasn't signed a new contract, they're free to sign a contract with anybody else in basically every country in the world. So get on it if you want to keep the player. Play a few matches, and if Kevin Teofile Catherine fits your fancy, sign him. Just sort by the expiring so you're aware of who is potentially gone. Side note, these blue guys are loaned in. They're loaned in from other clubs, so of course their contract expires at the end of the year. I talked about the B team and the U19s team. Well, for that, you're going to want to go over to filters. There's a lot of useful things in filters. We're not going to spend the time to go through all of them, but you can see you can get rid of loan and trial players, or like hide players in the mat. You can siphon through the players on here easily. But if you click second team in U19 team, those players are also going to pop up in your squad list. So you see there are a lot of players that are at Dynamo Zagreb. If you want to interact with them, you can go to the development center, and then you have your B team here, and you can see there are a lot of members of your B team. And then you can go to your U19s team, and you can see there are a lot of members to our Dynamo Zagreb U19s team. You're also seeing something that maybe you saw earlier if you were really perceptive, and that is the star rating. This is essentially your overall, except unlike other games, if we go down to reports, that's where we're going to see our star rating here. Unlike other games, this is subjective, which is realistic, and why we kind of love Football Manager. So if we sort by our star rating, we have Arian Ademi, who we were just looking at, the Macedonian midfielder. Well, his star rating is 4 full stars. Who's giving it to him but your head of youth development? That's right, you have a full staff, and one of them is going to be assigned to give your players a rating. Now, they have attributes, the staff members have attributes that determine how good they are at providing the rating, between a half star and a full 5-star golden rating, and it goes down below gold to silver stars as well, which is necessary because there are a lot of bad players in the world. I know, I sign all of them. That's comforting in a Football Manager for beginners, right? Me saying that? No? Okay. But the better that staff member is at providing the rating, the more you can trust the stars. I always say they're a very good guideline to get started. So if you go to reports, it'll narrow players down to their best position in this view. And so if you sort by that best position, you can see people at each position, and the stars are a pretty good guide at who you should be starting. But the stars are still subjective, and they're relative to your team also. So just because you have a bunch of 3.5 star players doesn't mean that those players are average to slightly above average compared to your league. It means those players are average to slightly above average compared to your team. Very important to keep in mind. A 4-star on Nottingham Forest is probably like a 1.5, 2-star, not 1.5. It is a 2-star player, 2.5 star player on Arsenal. Honestly, this year, probably a 4-star player on Arsenal, but that's beside the point. And I know what you're thinking. Wait, does that mean if I sign a better player, all of a sudden all the star ratings will go down? Yes, they will. Let's click on a player again for a second. Let's go back to our favorite midfielder again, Aryan Adeyemi, because there's pros and cons as well when you're evaluating your squad. So you have your star rating, which offers itself as a guide. And then when you click, the head of youth development, like we just clicked, has provided pros and cons on the player. And these give you a window into the last thing we're going to talk about today. And those are hidden attributes. There's over 10 attributes that are not readily available to be seen that are going to affect how your player performs in certain situations, how they perform overall throughout the course of a season, and how they handle interacting with you, because yes, you are interacting with these players as their coach. So I have the in-game editor. I'm just going to pull it up and show you the hidden attributes that are in the game for this player. So his adaptability, his ability to switch to a new situation. This is key when signing players. You know, if they don't speak the language, they've never played in the country before, the lower the adaptability, the longer it's going to take them to get there. You have ambition, loyalty, pressure, their ability to perform under pressure, and their ability to respond to you putting pressure on them as the coach. Professionalism, hugely important attribute for development and just the way they carry themselves. Sportsmanship, honestly irrelevant. Then you have temperament, which is how agreeable they are as a person, which is actually quantified in the game. Then controversy, which is how likely they are to start a controversy. That's rather obvious. Dirtiness, which can be a problem, right? They can pick up more cards that way. Important matches, which is how much they like playing in important matches, which if it's really low can be a huge problem. Injury proneness, which is obvious. And then versatility, which is how comfortable they are learning and playing in new positions. Typically you can figure that out by how many positions they already play, and that makes it easier to add new positions to their repertoire. All of those are working behind the scenes of all the other attributes, and I want you to take solace in the fact that I am often not thinking about all 40 something attributes at the same time, and you probably will never think about at least sportsmanship ever again. But the important ones do pop up in this pros cons list that your staff member who's leading the charge in evaluating your players provides to you. And you see that very consistent, relishes big matches, but susceptible to injuries, right? Lacks natural fitness. And they also evaluate the attributes for you and tell you what the standout qualities of the player are. So if you don't want to have to crunch the attributes, the pros and cons will tell you what the player's really good at and what they're not. Works really well within a team, is brave, plays multiple positions, and is considered a leader to the team. If you look at these pros cons lists, you get a very good idea of what type of player this guy is. He plays well within the team, he works hard, and he's a smart player that a lot of people like having around. That's basically what this attributes list is telling you. And so when you're evaluating your team and you go into the squad view for the first time, you look at the contracts, you look at the reports, and you can of course click around all these different options, and you start to get a feel and wade through all of the distracting piles of information that we're not going to get into yet, and understand who's good on your team, why they're good, maybe what your team is good at and what they're not. And there's a tool to help you do that, and that is called the team report. Now there is an assistant report that we're going to want to click to, because you have an assistant coach, and there's other stuff in here that we will get into later, like a team depth chart. This is where you want to make sure that you pick the right person to give you that team depth chart, and that's going to help you put your tactics together and sort of things. But if you go to assistant report, you get a pros and cons list for your entire club, and these pros and cons are relative to the league. So where the star rating is relative to your team, pros and cons are relative to the league. So you can see the squad has a good balance, heading, marking, determination, passing, concentration. Dynamo Zagreb's the best team in the league. It's not even particularly close. You take a team like Dynamo Zagreb, you're just going to be very good, dark green at a lot of different things compared to the rest of the league. But you are bad, you don't have strong leadership in the squad, and your lack of good corner takers is noticeable on the field, and that can become a problem. So you can find your problems that you might want to address, and the things that your squad is already very good at, to inform every decision that you make going forward, which in my opinion is the most important next thing to do once you start up Football Manager. All right, that's it for this Football Manager for beginners. I'm looking forward to the next one. I know this is helping out a lot of people that are making that transition, maybe from FIFA to Football Manager, or just finally getting into it after having the game for so long, which was the case for me. It took me years, and hopefully it'll take you less time with this stuff. We'll keep diving in, and we'll even advance a day in the next Football Manager for beginners. Okay. I did just wink. I'm sorry. I'll see you on stream.